because this ain't cool.
People were upset.
People were upset, and I was not expecting it. So, I mean, it's very wonderful
Is that whether you agreed with her politics or didn't, you can't deny that she did so much in so little time, and the musical really focuses.
Rachel Zegler was supposed to be the future of Hollywood, a golden girl handpicked by Spielberg, championed by Disney, and poised to become the next Jennifer Lawrence. But in just a few chaotic years, she managed to burn it all down, and not quietly. From red carpet disasters to jaw-dropping political hot takes, Rachel didn't just stumble, she self-destructed. So, how does someone go from being Hollywood's golden child to one of the most hated actresses in the industry? You're about to find out. Rachel Zegler wasn't born into Hollywood royalty, but you wouldn't know it from the way she skyrocketed into the spotlight.
You know, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an astronaut, and then I saw Apollo 13 and thought, better not. And then...
Born in 2001 in New Jersey to a Colombian mother and a Polish father, she grew up in a typical suburban household. But even early on, Rachel made it clear she wasn't interested in being typical. She was the theater kid, the one who lived for the stage, belted show tunes during lunch, and poured every ounce of energy into school productions. Her voice was undeniable. So was her ambition. While most teens were figuring out who they wanted to be, Rachel already had her eyes on something bigger. She launched a YouTube channel as a teenager covering Disney and Broadway hits with a confidence that said, "I belong on that stage."
Weird and overwhelming, isn't it? I think it's only weird and overwhelming because it's the first.
Then the stars aligned. In 2018, Steven Spielberg, yes, that Spielberg, announced he was casting for his long-anticipated remake of West Side Story. But instead of filling roles through agencies and Hollywood channels, he opened the floodgates to the public. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, and Rachel knew it. She submitted her audition tape from her bedroom, just a camera, a voice, and raw talent. And that was all it took. Out of more than 30,000 hopefuls, Spielberg picked her. A complete unknown. No prior film credits, no Hollywood connections, just a teenager with a dream and a voice that couldn't be ignored.
So when Steven Spielberg, of all directors, cast you, how long did it really take for it to sink in that this was your new...
She was cast as Maria, the lead in a massive studio film helmed by one of the greatest directors of all time. West Side Story premiered in 2021 to glowing reviews. Critics praised her performance. Spielberg called her a revelation. Industry insiders whispered that she was the next Jennifer Lawrence, a fresh-faced breakout, who could carry blockbusters and win Oscars in the same breath. But there was a problem. While critics loved the film, audiences didn't show up. It flopped at the box office, losing tens of millions for the studio. Still, Rachel didn't seem concerned. Because in Hollywood, a critical success can be just...
Oh, goodness me. I mean, what's that phrase that they say, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Well, this was something that certainly...
as powerful as a commercial one, especially when it makes you the breakout star. Rachel had arrived. She had the looks, the voice, the talent, and the backing of some of the biggest names in the business. Disney came calling. DC followed. She was being groomed for superstardom, handpicked as the next leading lady to dominate the decade. But here's the thing about rocket launches. They look incredible on the way up. It's what happens after liftoff that determines how high you really go. And for Rachel Zegler, the climb was short, because just as fast as she rose, the cracks began to show. Rachel's first real taste of backlash came at an event that was supposed to celebrate.
You are taking the stage tonight for a tribute for a legend in Stephen Sondheim. What song are you performing? Can you say that? Can you say the song?
Everything she'd accomplished. The 94th Academy Awards. West Side Story had been nominated for several major categories. But when the guest list was released, Rachel's name wasn't on it. Most actors, especially newcomers, would have taken the snub in stride. Maybe chalked it up to logistics or industry politics. But not Rachel. Instead, she took to social media and vented her frustration to millions. She publicly complained that she wasn't invited, implying it was a slight against her personally. Fans rallied, critics rolled their eyes, and within days, the Academy gave in, not only inviting her, but assigning her a presenting role on the show.
West Side Story star Rachel Zegler says she's not invited to the Oscars this year, despite her film being nominated for Best Picture.
It was a bold move, one that worked, but it also sent a very clear message. Rachel Zegler wasn't afraid to throw a public tantrum to get what she wanted. And even more troubling, it worked. From that moment on, the public image of Rachel Zegler started to shift. She wasn't just the talented newcomer with a golden opportunity. She was the girl who demanded special treatment and got it. Still, the industry wasn't ready to give up on her. DC had already tapped her for a supporting role in Shazam, Fury of the Gods, a light, breezy superhero sequel that should have been an easy win. Until press day. During an interview meant to promote the film, Rachel was asked why she took the role. Her answer? I needed a job.
Heroes. I needed a job. I'm being so serious. I mean, a lot of people keep asking me, hi, Adam.
Being so serious, what might have been an offhand joke came off as flippant and ungrateful. The clip went viral for all the wrong reasons. Fans of the franchise saw it as disrespectful. Studio execs cringed. Even casual viewers started to wonder, was this girl actually trying to tank her own career? It didn't help that Shazam 2 flopped badly. That made 2 box office duds in a row. And while most actors might have tried to tread carefully after such a stumble, Rachel did the opposite. Because her next role wasn't just high profile. It was the kind of part that could either make or break everything. And for Rachel Zegler, it did both.
Kind of run down it all. Shazam underperformed at the box office when it premiered, and there's many reasons for that. I'll go over a couple things that we're seeing.
Landing the lead in a Disney princess film is supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. For Rachel Zegler, it was the role, one that could cement her as a global superstar. Disney had chosen her to lead their live-action Snow White remake, a crown jewel in the studio's ongoing reboot empire. The message was clear. Rachel was going to be the new face of the Disney era. Young, talented, diverse, outspoken, she checked every box. The industry didn't just want her to succeed, it needed her to. And then she opened her mouth. During red carpet interviews and press junkets, Rachel began making headlines.
With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
So no Prince?
But not for the reasons Disney had hoped. Instead of promoting the film with the usual grace and charm, she doubled down on a bizarre strategy. Trash the original Snow White. She dismissed the 1937 animated classic as outdated, mocked the prince as a creepy stalker, and insisted the new version was being rewritten for modern audiences. Her words came off as smug and condescending, especially to longtime Disney fans who grew up loving the original. Instead of generating hype, her interviews sparked outrage. Clips of Rachel speaking dismissively about the role went viral across TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Overnight, she became a symbol of everything people hated about modern Hollywood. Arrogance.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went...
and a complete lack of respect for legacy. Some blame Disney for feeding her studio-approved talking points. But even if that were true, there was a way to deliver the message with tact. Rachel didn't. She came across as entitled and dismissive, completely unaware of how badly she was alienating the audience she was supposed to win over. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Audiences were already growing tired of Hollywood's obsession with reboots, remakes, and forced modernization. Rachel's comments didn't just fan the flames, they threw gasoline on them. The backlash was instant. Fan pages turned hostile.
Disney found a way to cast somebody for Snow White whose entire personality on a marketing tour for the movie.
Reddit threads exploded. YouTube commentators tore her apart. And just like that, Disney's Snow White reboot went from a crown jewel to a public relations nightmare. But if you thought Rachel had learned to keep things quiet, you don't know Rachel Zegler, because her next move made everything worse. Just when Disney thought the worst was over, Rachel Zegler pulled the pin on another grenade. It was August 2024. After months of bad press, leaked set photos, and growing skepticism, Disney finally released the long-awaited trailer for Snow White. This was meant to be a reset, a chance to win audiences back, reframe the narrative, and remind everyone of the Disney magic.
I am not exaggerating when I say Gal Gadot gives one of the worst performances you'll ever see in your life in Snow White. I just watched the movie, so here's my...
The studio had poured millions into this moment. The stakes couldn't have been higher. And the internet hated it. The trailer was instantly ratioed into oblivion. Thousands of dislikes flooded YouTube. Social media lit up with mockery and criticism. Fans called it unrecognizable, soulless, and worst of all, agenda-driven. Rachel Zegler was front and center in the backlash once again, and it was painfully clear. The public wasn't buying what Disney was selling. Most stars would have taken the hint, gone quiet. Let the marketing team do damage control. But Rachel, she leaned in. In a now infamous post, she thanked fans for the incredible support.
Kids do, and that excuse to actually bring your kids to a feature-length film was a really amazing thing that they were
As
able
if
to...
the trailer hadn't just been publicly torched. The tone-deaf optimism drew eye rolls, but then she added something that sent the whole situation into free fall. Seemingly out of nowhere, Rachel weighed in on the Israel-Palestine conflict. It wasn't a passing reference or a vague statement. It was a direct, unapologetic political opinion on a centuries-old, deeply complex issue. And it came in the middle of a collapsing film campaign posted to millions of followers who were already sharpening their knives. The backlash was immediate. Supporters called it brave, critics called it reckless. But one thing was undeniable.
The stances of Zegler and Gadot on Palestine and Israel. The two have expressed opposing views on Palestine and Israel. Gal Gadot, who served...
Rachel had just thrown gasoline on a firestorm. Comment sections became battlegrounds. News outlets picked up the story. The film's trailer, already struggling, was now completely buried beneath controversy. Disney was furious. This wasn't a minor PR hiccup anymore. It was a catastrophic failure of control. Behind the scenes, the studio went into lockdown mode. Executives scrambled to get ahead of the narrative. Rachel was assigned a dedicated social media manager to filter what she posted. Phone calls were made, meetings were held, and then came the final straw. Mark Platt, one of the film's executive producers and a longtime Hollywood power player, flew across the country just to confront her in person. Not to strategize, not to problem solve.
Dad, the producer of an enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of $millions on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand.
Just to deliver a very clear message. Take the post down. Rachel Zegler refused. That decision sent shockwaves through the studio. She wasn't just difficult anymore, she was unmanageable. In a world where stars are expected to protect the brand, Rachel had become a threat to it, and she wasn't backing down. There's a reason actors are trained to stay neutral during press tours. Not because they don't have opinions, but because one poorly timed tweet can cost a studio hundreds of millions. Rachel wasn't just breaking that rule, she was bulldozing it. She had no blockbuster hits behind her, no legacy franchise to shield her, no army of devoted fans to defend her in the storm.
Stop me if you heard this one before, but Rachel Zegler is getting dragged online for Snow White. Only difference is this time it's coming from someone with...
And yet she acted like she was untouchable. From that point on, Rachel Zegler wasn't just polarizing, she was radioactive. And Disney still had a ticking time bomb on its hands. A movie that hadn't even hit theaters yet. By early 2025, Snow White was no longer just a film, it was a cautionary tale. What was meant to be Disney's next billion-dollar remake had turned into a slow-motion disaster, and Rachel Zegler was at the heart of it. With the trailer rejected, the star loathed, and the narrative spiraling out of control, Disney did the only thing it could: delay. The movie was quietly pushed back by over a year, giving the studio time to regroup and hope the outrage would fade.
We knew this was gonna happen. We knew there'd have to be a change on Snow White because they were just ticking so many people off. From the actress...
But the damage was already done. In a last-ditch attempt to salvage her image, Rachel was put on a carefully managed apology tour. The studio booked her into softened interviews, adjusted talking points, and limited unscripted interactions. Everything was scripted, controlled, sanitized, but it was too late. People weren't just angry about what she said, they were exhausted by how often she said it. Every new clip felt like a rerun of the same smug tone, the same dismissiveness, the same unwavering refusal to just stop talking. No matter how hard Disney tried to repackage her as charming or misunderstood, the internet wasn't buying it.
That she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Oh my god, it's a really incredible story. You're making this girl boss story based on an important father figure?
And then came The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, a movie that should have been her redemption arc. Released in late 2023, it gave Rachel a second chance in a major franchise with an already loyal fan base. The film performed decently. Critics were lukewarm on her performance, but at least she wasn't being outright booed. For a moment, it looked like maybe there was still a path forward, but that brief calm didn't last. Because every time Rachel went off script, the headlines returned. Every time she opened her mouth without a handler present, the backlash reignited. The final blow came when Rachel reignited tensions within the cast of Snow White itself. Reports surfaced of friction between Rachel and her co-star, stemming from, you guessed it, more political disagreements. One source described the vibe at the 2025 Oscars as so tense you could cut it with a knife. Whatever goodwill Rachel had briefly earned was evaporating fast. And now, with the film's release date finally closing in, Disney faced the one scenario it had desperately tried to avoid. A massively expensive blockbuster led by an actress the public actively hated. And when the film finally hit theaters, it was a massacre. March 2025 arrived, and with it, the long-delayed release of Snow White.
People are assuming that Rachel and Gal did not get along because obviously Rachel has promoted Free Palestine. Gal obviously is Israeli.
After years of controversy, studio panic, and desperate rebranding, the film was finally unleashed to the public. And the result was worse than anyone at Disney had feared. The reviews came in fast and brutal. Critics didn't hold back. Words like soulless, joyless, and tone-deaf littered every headline. The reimagined fairy tale was torn apart for abandoning the charm of the original while failing to offer anything meaningful in return. Audiences weren't any kinder. The film was quickly labeled one of the worst live-action remakes Disney had ever produced.
Types. They're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White, but it makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way and then...
But the real story wasn't the film itself, it was the performance at the box office. Despite a colossal marketing push and global brand recognition, Snow White tanked. Not just underperformed, bombed. It lost hundreds of millions of dollars, making it one of the most expensive flops in Disney's history. And at the center of the wreckage stood Rachel Zegler. With her face on every poster, her voice in every interview, and her name tied to every headline, there was no separating her from the disaster. She wasn't just the lead, she was the story. And now the story was failure. Industry insiders began whispering the one word no actor wants to hear.
Production has had some backlash because you have these ticket holders speaking out saying, listen, like we're buying these tickets to go inside, yet the whole show's biggest number happened.
Unemployable. Rachel had become too risky, too divisive, too much of a wild card. Studios weren't just cautious, they were backing away entirely. Her public image was in shambles. She was seen as arrogant, difficult to work with, and unwilling to listen. And worst of all, she didn't have a single major box office success to shield her from the fallout. Disney had tried to make her a star. Spielberg had handed her a golden ticket, and in just a few years, she had burned every opportunity down to ash. Whatever career Rachel Zegler thought she was building, it ended the moment Snow White hit theaters. When Snow White crashed, it didn't just sink Rachel Zegler's latest project, it took her entire career down with it.
According to the writers of Snow White and Disney, women can't even want to be in love anymore. That's some outdated construct.
In the weeks that followed the release, something strange happened. Silence. No new announcements, no press tours, no upcoming roles. For someone who had once been plastered across billboards, trending daily, and hyped as Hollywood's next big thing, Rachel had vanished from the spotlight almost overnight. Behind the scenes, the message was clear. She was no longer bankable, no longer trusted, no longer worth the risk. Hollywood doesn't run on second chances, it runs on money and image. And Rachel had burned both. Her name had become synonymous with controversy, backlash, and underperformance. Studios began scrubbing her from future plans.
From that, now it's funny because these seem to be the only talking points that these two actresses have been given because they are regurgitating them.
Productions that once considered her quietly replaced her. Not because she lacked talent, but because she couldn't keep herself out of trouble. And it wasn't just executives pulling away, agents, producers, even fellow actors. People who had once been eager to align with her were suddenly nowhere to be found. There were no viral tweets of support, no directors stepping in to defend her, just an eerie vacuum where once there was noise, she had become untouchable. So she returned to where it all started, the stage. A West End production of Evita gave her a shot at redemption, or at least refuge. But even there, the energy was different. Theaters weren't selling out.
On X to complain that they've paid a lot for tickets, only for the biggest number in the show to happen off stage, something the show's
Reviews were polite, but not glowing. There was no buzz, no hysteria, no comeback headline. It felt like the industry was giving her a soft exit. No dramatic cancellation, no formal blacklist, just a quiet, uncomfortable fade. And the most brutal part? It all happened before her career even truly began. Rachel was barely in her 20s. She had starred in a grand total of a few major films. She was supposed to be building momentum, stacking hits, earning credibility. Instead, she was already being spoken about in past tense. Producers started citing her name in meetings, not as a possibility, but as a warning.
But it's hard. And it's lonely. It's very lonely. I just know that if that loneliness can exist.
A living example of what happens when the PR risk outweighs the talent. She didn't just fumble the bag, she lit it on fire in front of the world. And unlike others who've survived scandals, Rachel didn't have the track record, the box office hits, or the public goodwill to carry her through the storm. She had the spotlight, and she melted under it. Now, there's no major film on the horizon, no streaming deal, no franchise redemption arc. Just a long, uncertain road and a reputation that might take a decade to undo. Rachel Zegler didn't get canceled, she self-destructed. Quietly, publicly, and completely. Rachel Zegler's story isn't just about a fall from grace.
Love for who his daughter will grow up to be, and why he found this story so important to tell.
It's a masterclass in how fast Hollywood can turn when you mistake attention for admiration. She had everything, the voice, the talent, the opportunities most actors dream about. Spielberg discovered her. Disney crowned her. The industry rolled out the red carpet before she'd even built a resume. But instead of using that platform to build something lasting, she treated it like a stage for personal grievances, political rants, and self-sabotage. She didn't get taken down by tabloids or scandalous leaks. She wasn't the victim of a smear campaign or an industry conspiracy. She did it to herself. One tweet, one arrogant interview, one viral clip at a time.
It's a musical theater role. It's like King Lear of musical theater. It's brilliant and brilliantly written. And so
In an age where fame burns hot and fast, Rachel Zegler might be the clearest example of how quickly a rising star can become a falling one. She didn't just lose public support, she lost Hollywood's trust. And in this business, once that's gone, it almost never comes back. Maybe one day she'll return, maybe theater will ground her, or time will soften her edges. But for now, Rachel isn't a leading lady. She's a lesson. Because talent can open doors, but ego can slam them shut just as fast.